Okay, hey guys. I hope we're recording. I apologize in advance if you hear my cat. Um, he has been pretty vocal today, but I do want to say that this is a pretty serious thing that I'll be discussing today. So, just kind of want to heads up that for you. Um, so today's presentation is called Misogyny, Defamation, Harassment in Delphi's True Crime. And yeah, I didn't want to make this presentation, but you know, the subject matter is pretty heavy, mentally and emotionally. It's taken me the better part of a week to do it. Sifting through all the receipts and everything has been, over time you get numb to it, but, it doesn't feel great. That's putting it lightly. Um, so I think if I'm being honest, like, this presentation shouldn't even have to exist, but after everything that's happened, I believe I owe it to myself and now other people in the community experiencing similar things, or people in the community that, went through it before I even knew that this was a thing. Um, but I think it's important to pull back the curtain on, the uglier side of online spaces, in particular, the Delphi True Crime community. And, it's my opinion that the online community has been hijacked by bad actors who engage in stalking and harassment and defamation, intimidation, doxing, every form of psychological abuse imaginable. And some have even crossed into real world threats, all in an effort to maintain control over the dominant narrative. And there's no justification for this behavior. Not for the harassment, not for the targeting of people over differing ideas or, questions, concerns, critiques. The cruelty that we've witnessed isn't random. It's deliberate, and it's deeply abnormal how far it has been allowed to go. So for those willing to keep an open mind, take the following information and draw your own conclusions. So let's get into it. It's a long one. And I did try to pare it down, believe it or not. So, okay. So online harassment fractured the Delphi community. In an effort to seek truth and justice for 2 murdered kids, and then later to advocate for a man denied his due process rights, a battleground has emerged. An entanglement of egos, manipulation, and psychological warfare. Over the years, certain unremitting personalities and self-anointed advocates turned this tragedy that is Delphi into a stage. They built followings, they shaped narratives, and when challenged, they destroyed reputations. Instead of arguing facts or ideas, they relentlessly pursued their critics, and many of them into silence. It's been called drama, infighting, misunderstandings, etc. But let's call it what it really is. It's a campaign of intimidation, a form of digital terror that drove decent people away from the case. researchers, analysts, and ordinary citizens who wanted to help, but were bullied into silence, smeared with lies, or publicly humiliated. And not because they were wrong, but because they were inconvenient. So on one side are the self-proclaimed cranks, who style themselves as the pro-defense movement. On the other side, the troll farm, who posture as defenders of the victims' families and law enforcement. Both sides appear to be opposing forces, but in reality, they function as two halves of the same Uniparty machine. Both feed off division, both thrive on cruelty, and both eroded the integrity of the true crime community from within. So now, as these same voices attempt to recast themselves as victims, announcing blackouts, disappearing only to reemerge in private servers or obscure comment sections, the pattern repeats. Control through retreat, sympathy through performance. It's cultic, it's manipulative, and it's a distortion of true advocacy. And enough is enough. This presentation is not about petty feuds or personal grudges. It's about accountability. It's about naming the damage, the deliberate dismantling of trust, empathy, and truth within a space that was supposed to stand for justice. No one should fear speaking the truth about corruption. No one should be mocked, slandered, or exiled for asking honest questions. And no one, not R&M Productions or Angela, not HCC, not the subreddit Delphi Docs, not anyone should be allowed to weaponize a murder case and now a wrongful conviction. Because at the heart of all of this, behind every smear, every manufactured distraction, every blackout, are two murdered kids and a man whose future now hangs in the balance of a corrupt and cynical system. And this isn't about sides. It's about the soul of a community. The soul of the community that forgot what it was fighting for. Okay, I think I got these a little out of order. Let me backtrack real quick. So, disclaimer, of course. The following presentation reflects my own first-hand experiences, documentation, and opinions regarding online harassment, misogyny, and community behavior within the Delphi True Crime space. All statements are made for commentary, educational, and awareness purposes under the principles of fair use and free expression. Any examples shown, including screenshots or quoted material, are presented as evidence of public behavior and are not intended to defame, harass, or threaten any individual. And while I reference real interactions, my intent is to foster accountability and understanding, not retaliation. Similar patterns of silencing and intimidation have been experienced by many other creators and commentators, and this presentation, although predominantly told from my own point of view, the only one I feel comfortable expressing for obvious reasons, but this presentation aims to highlight that broader issue, the patterns of silencing and intimidation. So let's go back. Okay. Now let's do the timeline. Alright, so this is a little chaotic, but stick with me. I wanted to give a rundown of some of the events from earlier this year to demonstrate why I believe I have received the backlash I have. And of course, the online abuse directly correlates to me and others asking important questions or taking controversial stands. I don't claim to be perfect, but I also don't engage in the kind of personal attacks many of these people do. I do try my best to avoid attacking people personally. And I've never needed to manufacture smear campaigns because the evidence of harassment speaks for itself. Everything I discussed today is still available in my live streams, videos, and community posts as a transparent record. So, let's begin around 3/12, March 12th. Angela, of R&M Productions, premieres to the world the full 43-second video of Bridge Guy. And this is done from her YouTube channel, R&M Productions, linked to the Rick Allen Justice website, built by her close affiliate Luke Nicholas, or Curious Luke 93X. And at first the release seemed legitimate, but later appeared to be orchestrated, like an orchestrated release / leak. And to this day, it's unclear whether the video is official evidence or leaked discovery, since it bears no exhibit number and remains withheld, or I guess confidential, determined to be confidential by the court. It's very likely the latter, leaked discovery. So, on the 16th of March, 4 days later, Alex Voorhees and I go live covering receipts from his Delphi Stevenson crime archive. We discuss the purported foreknowledge of Richard Allen as the lone wolf perpetrator, the Delphi perpetrator, 2 years before his arrest. So, in January of 2020, the admin of the Delphi Dilemma Facebook group, Dawn, makes a post to her community asking her members to post their person of interest's initials, during which she posts hers as RA. Then, 2.5 years later, in early November 2022, about a week after Richard Allen is formally arrested, Dawn makes another post to the Facebook group explaining that the initials RA that she posted 2.5 years earlier in January 2020 were in fact meant to represent Richard Allen. Okay? So, hi, you have to be quiet. Yeah, sorry. Let's see. So that was March here. Okay, so after that live in early April here, I start hearing accounts from individuals close to Kathy Allen that she's being put in a difficult situation regarding several attorneys and content creators. And I made a community post discussing this, and I was immediately attacked by members of the community, close with the individuals allegedly pressuring Kathy Allen. Also at this time, I made a community post about the Uniparty, as seen here, because at this point it's becoming more apparent that individuals from seemingly opposing sides are actually friendly with each other, not only in the past but also up until the present day. So that happens, and then almost simultaneously this happens. Simultaneously dealing with the Kathy Allen outrage, a troll faction of Uniparty, specifically Jamie H. and Laura V., launched a misogynistic smear campaign against myself, primarily attacking my relationship with Alex Voorhees, but also demanding Laura be excluded from any discussions on the Uniparty. But, Laura literally dated Anthony Greeno and knows many of the people involved in the case from the area, including Tara German, Susan Hendricks, Becky Patty, and Jinx 13. And so I figured, like, if I have to take this abuse, I might as well ask Laura for the Delphi Roblox video, since she admitted to me that previous fall to having it. She also told Alex that she had the reenactment video and sent him images from the actual video. So if you want to hear and see, for yourselves, the back and forth between me and Jamie/Laura, all 3 videos are still up on my channel. So let's see. Okay. Now, by mid-April, the YouTube channel Hella Excited Utterance hosted a 4-hour live with Angela, R&M Productions, and Sleuthy Goosey. And in that live stream, Angela and Sleuthy proceed to disparage Kathy Allen, saying that Kathy didn't know what was good for her own husband and was not in a mentally sound enough state to know how to properly help him. And, these discussions and the rhetoric, it struck me, and I believe many others, as deeply inappropriate. Especially being that R&M is a purported healthcare professional, and that both women had attempted to contractually tie themselves to the Allens and their defense strategy moving forward. And that is alleged. But that is, that is what it was believed at the time. So, a couple days following Hella's stream, I go live. I think it was it went into Easter Sunday. So, and the name of that stream is Question: Who Framed Richard Allen? Answer: The Incestuous Delphi Knot. Where I ask why people like Angela or others close with the defense didn't bring up Dawn's foreknowledge of Richard Allen as the perpetrator. 2 years before his arrest, claiming that an RA is responsible for the murders of two children. It's weird, man. So, Dawn was in the same knot Discord server as so many of the same individuals. And many of those same individuals in the knot were also in Dawn's Delphi Dilemma Facebook group. So, in my mind, I wondered, why weren't more defense-leaning people bringing up this connection? So, I think then a couple days later, on the 21st of April, Peggy O does a live with Jamie H. called Rejection Projection, attacking my relationship with Alex Voorhees, attacking my character as being attention-seeking, manipulative, promiscuous, dishonest, etc., etc. And during the live stream, Peggy's mod, Jinx13, drops a streamable link of the Roblox reenactment of the murders of Abby and Libby. And if I remember, I will link Prof's Substack article on it, because it has, an in-depth rundown of the timeline and a detailed analysis of, the discrepancies that occur in the video, and also symbols found within the video. It's a great resource. So, in the meantime, where are we? I think we're here. Okay. The more I am attacked, the more I get to observe the interactions and connections between many of the individuals engaging in the harassment. So I made 2 late April, early May community posts, these 2. This first, then that second. And I was calling out the connections that spiral out from Dawn. Okay? So from the defense side, Dawn is very close with HCC. And HCC is very close to Angela. And Angela, of course, is close with Matt Hoffman, who worked as a defense private investigator. So then from the state side, Dawn is connected to Fig Solves, right? And Fig Solves, who we all now know colluded with Prosecutor McClelland to help spread the state's narrative. And then Dawn also has connections to people who are directly connected to Ron Logan. And according to Alex, Dawn was also close with Kay Weber, who was the mother of Brad Weber. Okay? So, after this, on the 10th of May, as I'm getting ready to go live with investigative journalist Brad Blankenship, HCC drops a meme in his YouTube community section depicting gun violence exacted against myself and Prof. Peggy O immediately follows with her own meme featuring a meme even more direct, depicting a triumphant individual posing over, freshly dug dirt of a buried body, with the tombstone reading, Adrian and Robin. And Robin is Prof's first name. Peggy O continues to make lives, videos, shorts, and community posts mocking, stalking, defaming, and harassing me all through May and June. By the end of June, an individual closely connected to all those same harassers contacted Alex's mother, barraging her with insults and slurs about her son. Around that time, we feature a short clip of the Delphi Roblox video during a live stream. Then on the 27th of June, HCC doxes myself and Alex, and Alex's entire family, his entire immediate family, on X, in retaliation for a tip Alex submitted to law enforcement in April 2024. And receipt of this tip is included in the Delphi Stevenson Crime Archive. And yes, it does give HCC's full name, address, age, and phone number. But keep in mind, Alex's archive is much more inaccessible to the average online sleuth, as it cannot be easily downloaded on a mobile interface. And it is a large file, it's a gigabyte. And, it's linked to these less familiar data platforms, right? And then, of course, it's intimidating for people to download files compiled by a former hacker. So, and then, for further perspective, Alex's archive has at least 28 folders with 10 or more receipts per folder. So finding that specific receipt on HCC would still take time and was by no means easily accessible. In contrast to HCC posting very publicly on a public platform, X, formerly Twitter, HCC proceeded to post full names, current addresses, phone numbers, contact information, but then went even further and doxed family members and their contact information, as well as, for me, my own personal divorce and financial records, as well as the name and items from my Etsy shop, an extension of my personal livelihood. Peggy O, too, made several shorts featuring items from my Etsy shop. A picture of myself with my then-husband, a picture of myself and Alex, and most alarmingly, a picture of my home. So, a week later, on the 4th of July, someone of that same group tipped me and Prof into the NCMEC, or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, for having and disseminating CSAM on our YouTube channels. So on the 19th of August, I was visited by local detectives for internet crimes, and they informed me of this false tip. And again, I'm going to reiterate this because please let this be a learning lesson. I am so lucky to have reported every instance of personal threats made against myself, because that visit from local PD could have been a full-blown swatting. So, as I will show in the next 19 slides, the sheer effort to discredit and silence anyone asking legitimate questions goes far beyond ordinary disagreement. It reveals something organized, coordinated, and deeply troubling. Okay, so first up. So we have, as the harassment begins to ramp up because of defending Richard Allen's wife, Kathy Allen, there's a lot of people that come in on behalf of R&M Productions to come after me. And, you know, I just start blocking them because that's the smarter thing to do. So eventually, she kind of has to come in here and do her own dirty work. And so I say, also I find it telling to see all the different people from all sides of the case who conveniently come after me just when information becomes inconvenient for you. But brava, actually showing up to do your own dirty work this time. It's more than I can say for others. And so R&M Productions, Angela responds, I wish I could drop a GIF in here. It would just be a person banging their head perpetually, or head against a wall in perpetuity. Peace be with you, mama. Get well. And then I said, yeah, I remember the other GIFs you and Luke sent my way when I deigned to question YJ having the mimicked crime scene photos and releasing them or leaking them on X last June 2024 actually. So, and then, you know, Luke coming in and saying, I still laugh sometimes at Luke and Angela sent me memes of lightning bolts as a threat, because they did attack me. They like spammed me with memes and gifs of like crazy witchy ladies doing weird witchy shit. And I was like, okay. But so here's Luke reminiscing, oh, the good old days when we could just, you know, intimidate people with gifts. And then of course now we have more recently Angela saying, today we GIF. So, and basically like memes and GIFs can be used as psychological attacks disguised as jokes, right? It's all plausible deniability. You know, you can mock, you can slander, you can humiliate, but at the end of the day they can say, oh, it's just a meme, it's just a joke. But it really does use someone's pain as entertainment, and it's like it is social cohesion, it's like a social bonding thing. Humor masks cruelty to dehumanize targets, distort their identities, and invite group harassment. And the goal is control by silencing, isolating, or driving people off platforms through shame and fear. So, this stuff occurs right after, you know, I start speaking up on behalf of Kathy Allen, and, you know, you start seeing comments like this, like Shaboogies comes in to my own channel and says, someone needs to enlighten your dark with Prozac stat. And, you know, I don't really care. I don't feel a stigma against any medicine that I take. So I was like, wrong, I take Zoloft. And then I was like, go be on your trollish ways elsewhere and find better people to simp for. And then what's funny is that Shaboogies was like, hey, me too, Zoloft and Wellbutrin, and I'm also on Wellbutrin, so that is hilarious. But it's like, then she says, I think you may just need to add something or adjust your dose. Good luck. So then I was like, classic Mean Girls. You learn from the best, though. Send Angie our love. all and sleuthy too. Because it, Anyway, then when Peggy O starts attacking me, Passenger 33 comes in and says about me, she is so much more than a narcissist. She is a psychosociopath with borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder. Plus paranoia, from what I'm assuming, is related to copious amounts of methamphetamine and can no longer tell the difference between pixels and grass. Truly disturbing, disgusting, and sad. And of course, that's hearted by Peggy O. Luis Cuevas gives a heart, and Peggy hearts her heart. So wonderful. So then, Peggy, I think this is towards more of the beginning of the barrage, but, she ats me and says, we all know your playbook from the strategic, psychotic, and manipulative game you're playing. It must be difficult to continue playing this game considering it has been exposed, and we all see you for who you are. In turn, you are rehashing the same crazy rhetoric over and over again. Hashtag bait and switch, hashtag Darvo, hashtag poser, hashtag move on, he don't want you, hashtag no one believes you. So you can see that it's, this stuff is getting personal in a way that is like, trying to stigmatize mental health against me, and then like addiction. Copious amounts of methamphetamine. Like, people can just make up whatever they want, So, keep going. The weaponizing of the stigma of mental health continues. We have, in relatively kind of chronological order, Hoosier saying, asking for a friend, how do you respond to accusations from someone with schizophrenic delusions? It's probably because I critiqued him on some shady behavior. And then this, again, a little later, lol, she likes to make up the craziest nonsense. The loony bin is calling, Adrian, pick up the phone. And then this more recently, I believe in September sometime, and he says, if you want to witness AI psychosis in real time, please subscribe to Enlight in the Dark. Warning, she is a fucktard. And then most recently, as they were stalking my comment sections, they decided to, screenshot something and say, this is a perfectly sane thing to say. So, we have Luke chiming in the middle of the summer, saying, oops, I did a misinformation. I can't tell if it's just non sequitur spaghetti or schizophrenia. And of course, he takes a community post that I make that is just keeping people updated on what I'm doing, because I am slow. Like, I still haven't gotten out the cult of 13, right? Because we're still stuck here calling these people out, right? But this was in the middle of the summer, and I'm saying, I'm just finishing up repotting and transferring some of the indoor plants that needed it, which got me thinking, before I even touch Cult of 13, I'll have to explain the plant situation in true crime, specifically my experience with Delphi. Hoping to have that for you guys sometime this week. Stay cool out there. Much love, Adrian. But he reduces it to this thing that could be interpreted as code or something. Finishing up repotting and transferring some of the indoor plants that needed it. Cult of 13. Stay cool out there. Much love, Adrian. And then, of course, Keith. Is schizophrenia contagious? Everything is a joke. Because if you say, well, you guys need to cool it, they'll be like, oh, it's just a joke. You can't take a joke. So... all of this is going to show how people try to rewrite my experiences and redefine me on their own terms, which is just nuts. Like, I feel like I'm like, some mythic creature that, anyway, we'll just go through them. So We have Freckle Joy here on X saying, the thing about Adrian is she always talks about the threats made to her life, ... But she doesn't mention that it was CJ and it was because of her relationship with him, ... She led him on and then dropped him for Voorhees, so CJ flipped out, ... It had nothing to do with the case. This is an outward lie. You know, like, there was never a relationship with CJ. So therefore, I never led him on and then never dropped him for Voorhees. And therefore, CJ did not flip out because of that. So I don't understand why people just blatantly lie. Alright? Let's see. Oh, this is All Eyes' response to me after I go on Rick Snae's show. And she says, about Rick Snae's shirt, she goes, "Oh my god, I have that same Dolly Parton shirt. And that is the nicest thing I can say because I'm so done with both of Adrian's two faces." Okay. And then I say, "I've only ever had one face, disappointment. And what you say is a projection of your lack of integrity. But go ahead and show your true colors. Nasty is a shade you wear well." Here's Freckle Joy again. She had such a hissy fit because Osbrook called her a liar, then ran over to Prof's live and talked out both sides of her face. Such a weirdo. All these guys, like, you know, they have similar talking points. I wonder if they, like, hang out. And then Spooky, who was my friend, one of my close friends, on the case. But, you know, there's nothing sacred. Don't assume anybody is your friend ever. Spooky says, in late September, "I have no idea what hole behind what Dollar General she crawled out of, but she is obsessed with All Eyes, myself, Ange, Kara, Michael, and just says anything she wants about us without ever even interacting with us or doing an iota of research into the victims and innocent man we are all doing we can to lift up and advocate for. She's putting out all kinds of nonsense about how we are colluding with the defense, but we also work for the police, but also our arrest and RICO charges are imminent. This is the kind of rhetoric that is genuinely terrifying and is going to end up in people getting harmed or killed. If you go to Enlighten the Fart channel or Prof's channel and skim through the community post, you'll see and hear all her insane diatribes. But yeah, it's us being assholes and causing unnecessary division. So I think it's funny too that, like, why would you be, like, terrified if RICO charges were imminent for the people that are doing corruption? I thought you cared about, like, Abby and Libby and everybody that's been deeply affected and wounded by corruption. But gaslighting much, right? So, and then All Eyes says, "Another parasocial weirdo who incessantly nags us to do our homework for her so she can cry narrative control MK Foster plant when we provide her the most up-to-date info, answers we're aware of." Fun. I think All Eyes just really needs a trophy for all the work that she does. That's kind of her thing. So, then we have Shaboogie saying, this was after the Meme Girls live on X, saying, "Adrian is not a victim. She said something funny the other day, though. She said we were using her feminine energy as the only thing she's worth, something dumb like that. Yet here she is lying and manipulating dumbass men who don't know any better with what, yup, her femininity." Dude, that was the exact thing that you guys said about me, and you just reiterated it. You literally were saying that I was lying and manipulating dumbass men. That's what you guys, like, that's what I was talking about. So it's so flippin' funny to me that you just came out and acknowledged that. they're not sending their best. What can I say? So then a conversation ensues, and this person says, so she accused you of objectifying her? Is that what she's saying? And Shipoogies is like, yeah, she said we were objectifying her during our live. Ooh, sorry guys. And then Grayspace says, using her feminine energy? Girl, what the fuck does that mean? And Shipoogie says, Lamau, IDK, you know, she's on that hippie shit. And then this person says, I have no idea what an Adrian is, don't want to, but it's said that we all have feminine and masculine energy, metaphorically speaking. And then Laura chimes in and says, feminine energy encompasses a set of traits and qualities such as empathy. And then, you know, she says, she doesn't care how she's hurting others. This is about me, Laura, who's never talked to me directly once. And, I mean, maybe she has in comments, but, like, I've never sat down and had, like, a real conversation with this person. And she's saying, well, here are what the feminine energy, all the traits that it encompasses. And so she's saying, well, empathy. She doesn't care how she's hurting others. She's saying that about me. Never talking to me. She's saying intuition. Must not have much of this if she's still with Alex. Nurturing, not available. Emotional awareness, nope. Authenticity, she very clearly lies and admits to it. Compassion, has no problem spreading rumors, lies. Vulnerability, not available. Super creativity, not available. Softness, not available. Playfulness, not available. Caring, she only cares about herself. These traits are not exclusive to women and can be embodied by individuals of any gender. It's so funny. They're still like, they still have to do their woke disclaimers, right? So, yeah, I found that pretty funny, considering, you know, people make up shit that never happened. They make up stuff that never happened. They portray me as some, like, you know, dingy, dirty, homeless person that, like, comes out and just screams bloody murder or something. That I'm just insane. But, I mean, like, you're making a whole post about me, so, and you were once my friend, so I just don't understand. I mean, I guess you just wanted to fit in with the cool kids. But, and then more recently, All Eyes posted this in response to HCC, saying, Adrian wanting all the vile dumb shit she smear pests people with to be true, even though it's not true, is a certain kind of fucked up that I don't even know how to process, like, please seek help, lady. It's just insane. It's actually insane. So, now we have Meme Girls. It's a whole 3-hour live. I'm pretty sure they did, a follow-up after it, but this was sometime in May. And so here we have Shipoogies saying what she needs to do is figure out why she lost a good-looking ass man with a career for that fucking drunk ass, greasy ass, abusive fucker who doesn't even like her. That's Shipoogies talking about my relationship with Alex. And then KO is saying she and Adrian, I don't know who she's referring to, equals Mean Goyles 2.0, how original, like, their content. I don't know if that's supposed to be because they have some Jewish ancestry, but that's kind of weird, especially coming from the woke crowd, right? And this is just Shipoogies promoting this, right? Because it's Luke, Shipoogies, Keith, True Crime Keith, Judge Jessica, and Michael Osbrook. And this is just a screenshot from the chat where it says, this torso says, Alex gave Adrian a stupidity STI. And you have All Eyes laughing. And then you have HCC laughing. And you have KO adding, not lately, and she awfully itchy. So, I guess implying that I have an STI, and that I haven't gotten it lately from Alex. I don't know. It's just a lot of cruelty, you know? And like, I couldn't, this slide, or this presentation's already 25 slides long. If I had tried to include everything that I have, I mean, it would have been at least 50. It would have been double. So, let's keep going. So, this is using my relationships against me. It's called Relational Weaponization, using a woman's romantic choices or relationships to attack her credibility, morality, or intelligence. It reframes private relationships as public evidence of character flaws, implying that, you know, I'm naive, promiscuous, or manipulative. And this is a classic tactic rooted in misogyny, because men's romantic histories are rarely used against them in the same way. So, we have Michael Osbrook, renowned habeas attorney, saying, like, going out of his way to create a post on X saying, a YouTube creator enamored of a hacker. And then saying that Alex, is the hacker, but that he's connected to the original leak of the crime scene pics, writes 486 words to enlighten, and not a single thing she says is true. Very creative, though. And that's actually a lie. This is a lie. Because everything that I have said ends up being true. Except for you going to Kathy Allen's house. End of discussion, lawyer. Like, you're not supposed to be lying, dude. You're an attorney. So, now we have over here Hoosier saying, he does a barrage of stupid community posts. And he says, Alex, notice me, senpai. And that's an anime reference, And then he says, I hear Prof is single. You should rebound with him. Adrian, is Dawn in the room with you now? And then here, Hoosier says, it all makes sense now. She's just trying to get back with Alex. He's just going to sext other girls again. You can do better, Adrian. And he includes a screenshot of me saying excellent to one of Alex's videos. So then Hoosier says, the craziest part is that he knows if he makes posts like this, Adrian will send him money. He doesn't even believe this stuff. He just takes advantage of other mentally ill people. Oh, and then again, I included this comment with Shaboogies. I need to figure out why I lost a good-looking ass man with a career for that fucking drunk ass, greasy ass, abusive fucker who doesn't even like her. If you stop and think about it, like, would you want anyone talking to your loved ones this way? Would you want to be talked to this way? Because, I'm sure, like, the people who are just brainwashed are like, no, this is totally deserved. But, dude, this is not a thing. You're not even talking about the things that I've been talking about. You're not even attacking me for defending Kathy Allen. You're attacking me for my personal life. Right? So, here's Delphi Docs more recently saying, Adrian is obsessed with sextortion because that's what Alex told her was happening every time he cheated or attempted to. Sending an unsolicited dick pic and getting blocked is not sextortion, it's sexual harassment. Well, this is correct, but let's insert the real thing that happened. Sending unsolicited boob pics is sextortion, actually. It's sexual harassment. So that's what ended up happening, right? It's tit for tat, not to be tongue in cheek, but I believe it's the females that reach out first doing the sexy stuff, and then trying to hold it over the males. But, you know, whatever you want to say. So we have gendered social control, and this is just, you know, more gendered language, and it's used to police and punish. And you'll see, like, pick me, like, Peggy O bish, like when they really want to call you a bitch, but they know that it's going to come back on them. You'll see All Eyes does this too. Jinx calling me a pick me, which is hilarious coming from Jinx. And then, let's see. Yeah, everything here is meant to reduce to a stereotype. It's social control, pushing the idea that women who assert themselves deserve ridicule instead of respect. This is a freshly created alt account, Bart Simpson. I've only ever seen Freckle Joy and Laura misuse the, what are these called? You know, the dots. It's supposed to be 3 of them. Anyway, somebody with a newly created account comes in and says, during, to reply to a community post, because Osbrook was making fun of my art too, they come in and say, you and Alex have been on a smear campaign for months. What did you think was going to happen? You are by no means innocent. Stop being such a slut and a drama queen, and I bet you this all goes away. I hope Ange sues the hell out of you. Courtney too. So it's interesting. Initially I thought this would be HCC, but you never know. But they're definitely like, what did you think was going to happen? Well, why? Do you have like a group of people that you're just like colluding with behind the scenes? I bet this all goes away. Why? Is there some deal with the devil I can make to make it go away? Is that what you're saying? Because no thanks. And so just, you know, just to be defiant, I say, well, I hope the feds arrest you. So, we'll keep going. We've got Uniparty Sexist Harassment. So, this is when I was attacked in November 11th, 2024, in Blue Eyed Trucker's Discord. And, yeah, I've gone over in detail about this in one of my lives, but Jinx is basically better. She's just attacking me because I can't see her. I have her blocked at this point, but she's just going off saying, you know, I say, how about you do better? Because Frosty tells me to do better. Jinx says, do better. Eat those words, you skank. You unfaithful little twat. How could you fuck somebody else when you're still married? That just shows what kind of person or who you are as a person. Something like that. But unfaithful little twat, you fuck somebody else. It's like, well, you don't know. Like, you have no idea. Again, just lies, making up shit. And, or like, you leave. Bitch, you started in with me first, months ago, with the dude who calls you a wipeout. No. I believe you and Gibbo and Louise and somebody else, you guys were attacking us in October, man. Like, that, we did not, you started it. It was you. I always feel like such a 5th grader being like, no, you started it. And then she says, prove it, bitch. And she also says, fuck you, you trifling lying ass bitch. So I was like, oh, well, that's interesting and lovely. Let's see. Oh, here's Luke getting mad when I'm like, oh, thank God Kara Warnicki, like, was being the voice of reason for, like, 2 days. Because, like, Luke single-handedly ruined the credibility of that website. Well, they all did, really. But he built that. That was his website. And so he says, this bitch triggers me so much. Yep. I'm sure I do. And then this is still up on All Eyes post, community post, calling out the wrong person, but, you know, But this evil, manipulative bitch, you just go ahead and say it, allies. You already have. I'm evil and a manipulative bitch. Okay? Interesting. But you're the voice of reason, and, you know, you definitely need an award for all you do for this community. And so when I called out Shaboogies and Case by Case for still getting more than likely, you know, compromised information coming from Osbrook, I put a mustache on her little avatar that she had because I knew it would enrage her, and it worked. It worked. She's like, bitch, shut the fuck up. You think you know it all, but you're actually a dumbass bitch. This footage wasn't even in evidence prior to trial, you fucking loathsome roaches that won't just go away. You think you're so fucking smart. Hey, guess what? If it's leaked discovery, get me arrested, bitch. What are you waiting for? So she's replying to my community post about her and Case by Case. And no, like, you would probably get the lawyer not arrested, but probably held in contempt. They wouldn't necessarily go after you. So, now we have sexual degradation. So, basically, this was from some live stream. It was either like a Gebo or a Frank Meister or Sleuth Intuition live stream sometime in the past couple of months. And Luke says, word is Noe is Alex's nickname for Adrian's pussy. Whack Noe. And so basically, like, and here we have Shaboogies, you know, doing the same whack pussy, right? And whack pussy is a reference to an incident that occurred on Friday, September the 13th, as retaliation against Alex for two things. One, streaming with Prof, and two, questioning Paradox about remarks that Paradox made during a Curious Contrarian live stream. Specifically, his claim that he had come across crime scene photos of Abby and Libby while researching on the dark web years before Alan's arrest. And basically, like, on the 13th of September 2024, in the Curious Contrarian Discord chat with people I had considered friends or that I was friendly with, claimed that Alex had been telling people my pussy was whack. So this repeated use of the whack pussy insult, now over a year after it began, shows this ongoing pattern of targeted, gendered harassment. You know, it started as retaliation against Alex, but it became a campaign to humiliate and silence me. And, of course, reviving the slur months later demonstrates fixation, coordinated cruelty, and the intent to sustain reputational harm. And, you know, this isn't casual language. It's sexualized. It's meant to degrade, intimidate, and push, you know, women off of platforms by reducing them to their sexual parts and turning them into punchlines. So, although there were, you know, a lot of other instances that I came across where they used whack in reference to me, I had to pare it down quite a bit. Now, in regards to HCC's comment, he says, Adrian, I know you aren't good at pattern recognition, so let me help you. Every woman that stops doing Alex's commands gets put in the folders. You better take some of your Odinist art money and buy a good set of knee pads. And both of these guys, keep in mind, both of these guys are very close with Angela. So Angela knows what's being said and what's happening behind the scenes. So, in regards to HCC's comment, it was meant to sexually humiliate, degrade, and silence, you know, the knee pad slur, and pairing it in reference to my art and personal life. He's reducing my professional identity, you know, into a sexualized insult. Like, you know, I guess I'm going to have to resort to sucking dick to make enough money later on, you know, as long as I save up with my Odin start money to get those knee pads for when I'll have to suck dick. And the comment also frames women as submissive to men's commands, because he's saying Alex's commands, echoing misogynistic narratives of control. It's targeted harassment. It's meant to publicly shame, dehumanize, and intimidate, you know? It's just plain and simple. Okay, now we have what we all came for, right? Serving cunt. So Angela's R&M Productions, for people who don't know. Her use of the slur cunt, followed then by the Delphi Docs definition post of cunt, serving cunt, work together as an act of reputational manipulation. So the original post is a gendered slur. It's not camp humor, okay? Angela says, we don't just serve smear pesting, we also serve cunt. And that's not meant to be used in the LGBTQ serving cunt sense, which is, it's performative, self-referential, like serving fierce energy, okay? Instead, it was directed at me in reaction to, you know, my investigative content and support for other investigators as a way to brand me as nasty, abrasive, and less credible. The gendered slur functions to undermine credibility by sexualizing and degrading me, and it's a signal to Angela's audience that attacking me personally is fair game. And, you know, it frames my seriousness as drama to trivialize my work and worth as a person, right? So now with the cover-up post over here by Delphi Docs, within 48 hours, Delphi Docs posts a dictionary definition of serving cunt, calling me out directly. This is a classic rhetorical laundering to reframe the misogynistic slur as empowerment in order to neutralize backlash for the dear leader, who is Angela. It also serves to gaslight myself as seeming oversensitive if I claim or if I object. And Delphi Doc's definition provides plausible deniability for the aggressor's allies. They can now claim it was queer vernacular, camp, or a joke. The slur plus the cover-up definition is a prime example of coordinated minimization, never apologizing or disavowing. Rather, it is a rewrite to make the abuse look cool. So, and then in the replies to Delphi Doc's post, they come and get you a plate from Keith, laughing emojis. It's all performative solidarity. You know, it's not defense of freedom of expression. They're celebrating humiliation. It's like saying to the audience, like, we're all in on the joke, and if you call it misogyny, you don't get internet humor. So, you know, looking at this, like, all of this really fits a pattern of strategic, like, immorality, or moral inversion, I should say. Because, like, so there's instigation, right? She does this. Like, I haven't called her out specifically ever, at all. Like, not in the way I'm doing right now, right? Like, this is pretty direct for her, actually. But I haven't gone and done that. So, she launches a public insult. Then deflection, her circle reframes it as empowerment. They normalize it. So by amplifying it, you know, the joke, until the outrage seems uncool. And then they victim switch. And she'll later present herself as the one being attacked when called out, right? So this is the playbook of someone who knows how to manipulate perception rather than engage in accountability. A sincere advocate or journalist would clarify intent, retract, or at least acknowledge harm. A bad actor manufactures ambiguity and hides behind irony. And so when Angela, you know, publicly called me a cunt, her associates immediately tried to rebrand the slur as empowerment This is weaponized ambiguity, okay? It lets an abuser repackage the wrongdoing, the cruelty as irony, so that any victim's response to it looks humorless or hysterical. And it's a pattern. It's the mock, redefine, and deny. And that's generally how bad actors maintain control of the narrative while silencing dissent. Okay? So, okay, well, this too. And if we're being real, aside from the 2 to 3 males, that it's been my experience that much of the harassment and manipulation in this community has come from women. But, women have mostly used their sexuality and even their own image as a form of leverage to gain access to information, control narratives, or manipulate others emotionally or socially. I'm not naming names, but it's important to acknowledge that that kind of coercion is also abuse. When someone uses sexual pressure or threatens exposure to gain power or influence, that crosses into the territory of sexual extortion. Now more colloquially called sextortion. And yes, that's a crime in most states. It's digital blackmail, and it should have been taken seriously long ago. And alongside that, we've seen the use of extreme slurs, words like pedophile, Nazi, misogynist, although I've made a pretty good case that we are seeing misogyny here in its true sense, right? And other such words have all been weaponized as tools to destroy reputations. Those are among the most damaging accusations you can throw at someone, and they've been used recklessly to turn public sentiment against independent voices. Using those words to dehumanize someone, painting them as a monster or a villain without evidence, you create a psychological justification for hatred and violence. It's linguistic social exile through language, and it's reprehensible, and we have to stop normalizing it. So, now we have menacing and directly violent threats. So, in June of 2025, we're going to see that a lot of this stuff, the behavior here covers several different legal behavioral categories. So this is what we would call implied or menacing threats. So using the jigsaw image plus I want to play a game here as his community post. It's a threatening symbolic message. It implies violence without saying exactly how. Plus then it has all these people coming in to back them up. You've got Woman Doing, Phoenix, Judge Jessica, Curious Luke, Vigilante Elephant, Hoosier Cold Cases himself, Steven, Yellow Jacket, Louise Cuevas, and Alan Prickman. So, and then he follows up with this kind of stuff. So Adrian is a terrorist seems right. Well, what he's doing is actually considered menacing / terroristic language. So then you have your direct threat of violence. It's free reign on these people now. I'm coming for you, so you better fucking hide. Is a straightforward threat to harm or intimidate people, yeah. And then when I called him out, or when I said something about it, he says, it's not a physical threat, numbnuts. I'm not your Adderall stealing boyfriend. Oh, and let's see. This is Peggy O. After doing like a 48-hour barrage of just plain old harassment, she says, next time it will be 3 times, bitch. So, Oh, and then this was shortly after I came out about the Delphi knot, saying, why, if you guys knew who Dawn was, and I'm certain that you knew that she had said Ari's initials as her person of interest years before he's arrested, like, why didn't you guys bring that up to the defense? Right around this time, Angela says, y'all realize that we don't respond or even acknowledge you most of the time because you're fucking nuts, right? Like, it wouldn't even be a fair fight because y'all are fucking nuts. But I don't know, feeling pretty fed up lately, might fuck around and take the hoops out, drag a carcass or two around. I wonder what that's about. So, yeah, so basically you have the direct threats of violence, the menacing threats, harassment or cyber stalking. That would basically be kind of Peggy O here. She did repeated hostile posts aimed at specific people or groups. Creates fear, distress, and could meet the criteria for most stalking statutes. Then some of them, well, there's also this thing called incitement, solicitation to violence. If the poster is encouraging others to attack, that's a separate serious category called encouraging third parties. There's also intimidation or coercive control used to silence or control victims and witnesses. That could be a lot of things too. Those are some of the different categories, and classifying them depends on context and jurisdiction. But taken together, these posts are menacing and should be treated as potentially criminal. Okay, so memes as threats. This was the 10th of May, 2025. The memes here are being used as a form of intimidation. Hoosier is adding, he's tagging Peggy O, saying Prof and Adrian are shooting Prof and Adrian, but Hoosier's saying that we would turn around and be like, why would Ange and HCC do this? So we're saying, like, we're bringing, bad things upon ourselves, but we're going to blame it on Ange and HCC. Well, I mean, it kind of ends up being that it's Ange and HCC that are doing a lot of this. And then we have All Eyes here laughing because I'm like, wow, that's pretty terrible, There's like an echoing silence from a ton of creators that, we could talk about later, but All Eyes comes in and basically like applauds him, says, memes are literally metaphors, not violence. What is wrong with them? And of course we have Louise laughing. So Peggy O is trying to compete or one-up HCC, and she does a good job. She says, me not giving a fuck. And of course here's the guy posing triumphantly over freshly buried body, right? And on the tombstone it reads Adrian and Robin. And Robin is Prof's first name. So now we're getting into some of the more serious stuff. I did go over this a little earlier about, the fact that HCC doxes me and Alex very publicly on X. This is Peggy O. This is a screenshot from Peggy O's, and this one too, from her shorts. This basically doxing, my ex-husband, doxing my work product, my livelihood, and doxing my home where I live. And then this is HCC posting Alex's, not just himself, but his mom, his stepdad, his dad, his stepmom, and his brother. And it has their phone numbers, their addresses, their emails, where they work, some of them where they work. And then this is, him posting my Etsy stuff too, my livelihood as well, saying fuck you. And he's posting my divorce records as well as, my full name, my address, my phone number, my contact, family members, and even some of their contacts too. And then I guess, I think sometime in September, sometime in December, HCC doxed Alex's workplace and work manager on X. Because he's perfectly sane. All of this is very normal, guys. And that is sarcasm. IRL, real world physical threats. Okay? So this is when online harassment escalates into the real world. So it began in August of September of 2024. Alex had a sex toy sent to his home, right? Then a couple months later, it's postmarked as the 16th of November, but I get it on the 9th of December. Someone sends a prank gift, fake shit, to my house. So, and I guess like under federal law, it's called a harassing or threatening parcel. So, basically, it's stalking harassment when it's a physical form. You're sending unwanted, menacing items to a home is direct harassment and stalking behavior. Then there's also this thing called mail threat, hoax device, intimidation by mail. It's under federal U.S. law. Sending a threatening or harassing object through the postal system can fall under 18 U.S.C. 876, mailing threatening communications, or 1716, injurious articles. And if it were a terroristic threat or threat of harm, if the package implies violence, contains a weapon, fake weapon, or something designed to cause fear, like red-stained items, dead animals, etc., it may qualify as a terroristic threat. Okay? So then, on the 19th of August this year, a false tip was made against myself, stating I played a video containing or depicting CSAM on my YouTube channel in Light in the Dark. I would like to have in writing the full report, particularly the origin of the report, who specifically tipped me in, and that there was in fact no finding of CSAM on my YouTube channel. So, this is actually a federal law, or a federal crime, right? False reporting, making a false emergency call, attempted assault, attempted homicide by proxy, right? It could have gotten to that stage. Swatting can easily lead to injury or death. It's often prosecuted as a violent felony or domestic terrorism tactic, depending on intent. And then we have cyberstalking and retaliatory harassment. If the swatting attempt is part of ongoing harassment, it strengthens the stalking case. So now we have a lot of the mockery and minimization. This is, again, it's not my place to tell other people's stories, but I'm starting to notice that the same thing that began happening to me is now happening to a lot of other people. Of Keith is pretty relentless. True Crime Keith is pretty relentless. And he's basically saying, he says to Amy G, I don't care if you had cancer. Stop pretending to be further into this than you are. It makes not only you, but the Rick Allen innocent folks, something doing work, look bad. It's so you only care about appearances? You don't want her to investigate things that aren't the way that you want them to be investigated? And you don't care that she had cancer? Wow, you're a fantastic human being, Keith. Here's Keith again reacting to Amy G. They're all out of their minds. This is, and MEG's just saying, this is why I like Prof. He isn't against different opinions. He doesn't lash out at people for no reason at all, or for disagreeing. I don't think that's like a incendiary statement of any kind. But here now, they're all out of their minds. And case by case, this is pretty interesting, right? So replying to True Crime Keith and Hoosier Cold Case, been on the scene 5 minutes and she's got it on lock, and 5 middle fingers. Get the fuck out of here. Driving Miss Daisy needs to stay in her lane. Why? Like, that's pretty unhinged, lady. 5 middle fingers because somebody's like actually looking into something and maybe coming up with something that's not what you said. Yeah, you guys are all unhinged. I'm sorry. That's not normal behavior. That's not normal at all. And of course, Passenger 33 calling me the maiden moron, and Prof the poof. Poof, of course, in England or the United Kingdom is often like a derogatory term for a gay. And we have Belly May saying down here, talking to Dawn of all people, and saying something about AV, who's Alex Voorhees, or his handmaidens, right? Because none of us think for ourselves, So not the first, not the last. I mean, we're going to have a smorgasbord here, but, here we have Passenger 33 again calling all of us that, don't agree with them sick fucks. Oldmore making a just pretty benign comment. Nobody is beyond criticism. This is 18th of June this year. And then Shibugi says, okay, Adrian, LOL. And then this is Luke, also all Adrian, showing me as a witch getting burned. Is that what that is? That's weird. That's pretty weird. So let's see. We have Freckle Joy or Streets of Bakerfield saying, I have 1 month off for work or something. Clock for my next shift. My life's passion will be to get Prof, Adrian, Christine, and Erica as far away from the Delphi case as possible. Hopefully prison. Then she says, and I kind of messed it up here, but it says, I would really love to see Mata just body this bitch once and for all, talking about Erica Morse. And then she says, Erica Morse once again dragging poor Bob Mata into her lies. Can we get Mata to shut this bitch up, please? Jesus. This is All Eyes saying, it's not friendly fire. Prof and Christina are stalker bitches, and I'm sick of their coordinated smear pest campaigns against anyone who won't go along with Prof's narrative. This is All Eyes talking about Christina, but also me because she thinks I'm Christina. But it's mostly about Christina's good work that she's mad about. But she says, glad that manipulative stalker bitch makes you happy, but I'm finding her pest behavior is extremely creepy and red flaggy. You do you, though. Okay. This is from the 23rd of September. Delphi Doc saying, I believe they're talking about Oh Hey Christina here, but they're saying, the woman who wrote this unhinged track, this is just a small bit, is the type who, a couple of centuries ago, would have looked at her neighbor's orderly house and happy family and then her own pigsty and delinquent offspring and accused the neighbor of being a witch. That's like really specific, and it's funny because your brother in arms, Luke over here, just accused me of being a witch and then lighting me on fire. Implied that I was a witch and got to light me on fire. So Shibugi says, oh look, proof that they're fucking insane. Okay, So this is Shaboogi's response to Erica Morse. She says, "Oh, looky, she's doing that thing where she's guilty of what she's accusing others of, except it doesn't work anymore when we have actual video evidence of you lying about Rick and working against him prior to joining his defense team. So that makes this read even better. Shut up, hag. Only Prof and his 25 mods still believe y'all's bullshit. LOL." It's like, okay. Hoosier Cold Cases, that KKK Christina lady is a fucking lunatic. True Crime Keith, hey KKK Christina and dipshit Diana, are you two donkeys having a hard time finding me? I don't know why Diana is even bothering. It's like, okay, alright, so you harass them, and then they talk about you harassing them, so you harass them some more. I mean, these people are supposed to be adults, by the way. Okay, so let's go through this. So this harassment isn't isolated. It's a long-running pattern. And the same people who attacked me have done this to others, using the same language of misogyny, mockery, and group defamation. It highlights how these smear tactics recycle over time, targeting anyone who challenges them, especially outspoken women. And I really want to take a moment to acknowledge something that doesn't get talked about enough. It's the way that women primarily associated with Prof are treated online. Many of us have faced especially harsh, disproportionate attacks simply for being visible, for having opinions, or for standing beside someone who's willing to challenge the status quo. It's not just disagreement, it's harassment. It's gendered ridicule, and it's coordinated attempts to isolate and silence us. And this double standard is real, and it's driven some incredibly talented voices out of this space entirely. And that's part of why Prof has been such an asset to smaller creators like myself. He's one of the only people with a larger platform who's actually transparent, who doesn't manipulate narratives behind the scenes, and who goes out of his way to shield others from harassment when he sees it happening. He has offered protection, context, and a rare sense of fairness in an environment that has become relentlessly hostile. And whatever people may think of him, I've seen firsthand that his support for smaller independent creators has made a measurable difference. Not just for the work, but for our safety and peace of mind. So, yeah, I mean, he's been the only person really. You guys haven't stuck up for us or anything. You've attacked us, but just insane. Just insane. Okay, so now we have damage control. Contemptuous damage control. Justifying abusive behavior. So we have R&M Productions, I think, late October 2025, goes and makes this post. She says, "The valued and beloved friend of R&M and the Cranks to #1 MVP of exposing and bringing down R&M and the Cranks pipeline is a phenomenon I've quit trying to understand. All I know is that this side values and appreciates anyone and everyone who cares about justice and enjoys not taking themselves too seriously and doing a laugh and a giggle from time to time. Any claims that I or any of the Cranks were ever anything but welcoming is a lie. The true reason for the pipeline is likely much sadder. The appeal is moving at a glacial pace. I/many others stop going live due to work, family, hobbies, illness, real life shit. There is a content/information vacuum which always and inevitably leads to drama and trouble. We refuse to get into the playpen and mud wrestle with agitators who need to get off the internet and go to the hospital. So the insane false narratives and outright revisionist history get screamed nightly over and over and over. People want communities, so they'd eventually just shrug and latch on like, you know what, hell yeah, fuck R&M, fuck the Cranks. But it's truly a better time just being a better person. Go to the hospital." Okay, so what stood out to me were a couple of things. The post seems reasonable, but it's rhetorical and performative moral grandstanding. It sounds placative, but it delegitimizes and mocks the people who Angela's targeted. Angela and her cranks have all targeted, right? Phrases like, any claims that I or any of the cranks were ever anything but welcoming, or get off the internet and go to the hospital. These are classic gaslighting techniques meant to rewrite history and position herself and her group as decent and level-headed, so that anyone protesting their harassment from the cranks will be labeled as unstable or unwell. It's dismissive and weaponizes the stigma of mental health against her critics. And, like the main objectives of this piece are rebranding, right? Attempting to reframe herself as reasonable, lighthearted, and justice-minded after being exposed for harassment. An erasure of accountability. So describing the pipeline of people who turn against her as sad or sick converts legitimate criticism into pathology. Because only the sick or sad dare disagree or critique crank cruelty. And then there's this cultic community conditioning. It's like the signaling of her group, or to her group, that empathy and engagement with their critics is discouraged to maintain social cohesion within their crankosphere. The post is an attempt to launder abusive behavior through irony and plausible deniability. The real message isn't about peace. It's about control through tone policing. And it vibes like, if you respond emotionally to abuse, you're crazy. It's yet another way to delegitimize genuine emotional responses. And it's all with the aim to reassert dominance after wrongdoing. And this pattern closely mirrors the cycle of abuse dynamic, of degradation, public insults, doxing, slurs, minimization, oh, it was just a joke, victim blaming, critics need to go to the hospital, and then reframing or rebranding. We're just about justice and fun. Yeah, go to the hospital is an escalation. This whole post is a poorly crafted reputation repair aimed at outsiders who don't know the full backstory. And for those of us who do, it's a taunt. It's a way of saying, I can still mock you publicly while pretending to be civil. Okay, so, clearly she knew that wasn't a great message, so she follows up with this. In response to Angela's own terrible response, Angela gaslights with a PSA regarding deliberate misinterpretation by her critics. So let's read through this. PSA. Constant misinterpretation is not due to misunderstanding. It is the entire point. These groups keep deliberately reframing our queer/camp/crank phrases into literal/misogynistic/insulting language, then assigning malicious intent and moralizing about us publicly to highly suggestible followers. Why does this feel so relentless and impossible to interrupt? Because it is not accidental and it is not misunderstanding. It's a strategy that keeps us in constant defensive/clarification posture, while they get to maintain narrative ownership. They never have to prove any harmful intent. They just declare it, psychologize it, escalate it into malicious intent. The misread is the mechanism. And the more we try to explain or clarify, the more it feeds them. Like, see, now they're scrambling to cover. This weaponized misreading is a pretty common tactic used in ideological or justice-framed communities, especially the online ones, an umbrella that Free Karen Reed and Delphi certainly fall under. It's seen in politics and business too. Basically, wherever two or more highly contradicting set of beliefs, opinions, or ideologies exist, this phenomenon is likely to play out in one way or another. It makes it functionally impossible for cranks at all to speak in our own register without it being turned into further evidence of our nefarious intent and our moral degeneracy deplorability. Where have we seen this phenomenon play out? In Free Karen Reed / Delphi? Geez, let me count the ways. Stolen and publicized private messages, the defense attorneys, their emails and texts, due process gain, private group chat, stolen, published by non-party, various cranks, Discord, private messages and text, tweets, all strategically piecemealed and published. Countless examples of this occurring in the Free Karen Reed movement, Aiden, Olivia, Karen herself, stripping words of all context or nuance in order to twist and distort them into something nefarious, cruel, or callous. The defense attorneys' benign or out-of-context words said in chambers, during hearings, in emails, messages, etc. Me and Sleuthy, 3 hours of discussion, chopped up and piecemealed in order to weaponize misinterpretation and invent, assign improper meaning. The words of Mr. Osbrook and Ms. Weineke, tweets, messages, etc. Turtle Boy's comments about Joel and Karma surviving the survivor. Karen's comments to Dateline turned into seconds-long sound bites and used against her by the state during her trial. I haven't yet gotten my head around what the remedy is, but I do know what is likely not. The mere mention of these groups in their bullshit of the week does nothing but provide further fuel content and perpetuates the cycle, and we must not feed the beast. Please stop feeding the beast, I beg. Oh my god. Alright, let's break this down. Okay, so she starts off with PSA, constant misinterpretation is not due to misunderstanding. It is the entire point. Okay, so this begins by declaring bad faith on everyone else. R&M, Angela, never has to consider that her own language is unclear or hostile. Honestly, people are reading and quoting her words the way that they are because they were public and harsh, not because we set out to misread anything. And then saying it's the entire point lets her dismiss every critique as sabotage instead of answering, like, why did you call people those names? Or taking accountability for her words. It's basically just saying, like, if you criticize me, I already decided you're doing it on purpose. Okay. Let's see. These groups keep deliberately reframing our queer, camp, crank phrases into literal, misogynistic, insulting language. Okay. So, she's basically blaming the audience for hearing misogyny when she and her group used language that was misogynistic. Let's be honest. So, is this a queer, camp, crank space or a true crime space? Like, how are we delineating that, right? Last I checked, it's the same true crime community. But you can't just now say, oh, we meant it campy. That doesn't erase its impact. If you call someone a cunt or a bitch or a handmaiden or maiden moron or mock cancer or sexually degrade people, the issue isn't that we failed to read it as camp. It's that you chose contempt as the baseline, as the underlying message. And calling it a reframing is a way to avoid owning that the original phrases were demeaning. So, why does this feel so relentless? Because it is not accidental. And it is not misunderstanding. Okay, so turning normal accountability into some coordinated operation, right? And you know what? Like, multiple people noticing the same pattern is like, miss, your pattern's showing. Like, us relentless obsessives are purposely misunderstanding, right? No. Like, it's relentless because the behavior keeps happening and you keep posting contemptuous insults. Like, you could make this stop, dude. It's pretty easy. Let's see. It's a strategy that keeps us in constant defensive clarification posture while they get to maintain narrative ownership. Oh, okay, so accountability is strategy. Interesting. If we're being real, it's completely normal to ask, where did this release or leak of, the video come from? Or why did your story change? And that's not someone trying to own the narrative. It's people trying to verify info in a very complicated, messy case. But, if you routinely have to clarify, the issue is the original messaging, not a conspiracy to make you explain yourself. They never have to prove any harmful intent. They just declare it, psychologize it, escalate it into malicious intent. Okay, so now what? Critics are just inventing intent out of thin air? The intent is visible in the language. You're mocking people, you're calling them names, calling them out of their minds, implying they're defective researchers, smearing their work, smearing them as people. That's hostile. People aren't psychologizing anything other than they're reacting to what was actually said by you and your group in public. The misread is the mechanism. So basically, being quoted is the weapon. But they are words coming out of your mouth and your followers' mouths. I think what you mean to suggest is that the mechanism is what's problematic for you and your group. It's problematic because it's the documentation of your own words. The keeping of records. If people keep receipts to keep you and your group accountable, that's not misreading, that's literally archiving. And if the only way your words look okay is if nobody screenshots them, then the problem is your words. The more we try to explain or clarify, the more it feeds them. Okay, so you're setting up for your blackout. Interesting. Totally and completely normal. But if your clarifications contradict or minimize your earlier statements of what was actually said, of course there would be follow-up questions. Like, we're not as stupid as you would like us to be. And what? Calling follow-up questions feeding them is a complete control tactic. You're literally telling your own followers, don't look, don't reply, don't compare notes. Why? Are you afraid they'll start asking questions too? This weaponized misreading is a common tactic in justice-framed communities. Where is it? Yeah. Oh, okay, so just wrapping personal drama in sociological language to make it sound like some known phenomenon or case study. What actually is common in justice spaces is people using identity as a shield from criticism. And that's exactly what's happening here. You can't say, we're in a justice space, and then talk about women or to women like they're trash, and act shocked when they say, hey, that's misogynistic. Girl, you're supposed to be the woke one. It makes functionality impossible for cranks et al. To speak in our own register without it being turned into evidence of our nefarious intent. Okay, so you're the victim. We are the ones silencing you and your group of cranks. Nobody is saying you can't speak. People are saying, when you speak in a way that demeans others, it will be documented. You're doing too much with our own register. That's like the updated, oh, my truth. But for like the collective cult. If your register contains personal degradation, people are allowed to call out what it is. Stripping words of all context, nuance, to twist them, the defense attorneys, Sleuthy, Osberg, Weineke. So you're grouping yourself with actual case actors to make criticism for yourself look like criticism for the defense. Being critiqued alongside, public defense figures doesn't mean their critiques are fake. It means you put yourself in that lane. And if 3 hours of discussion can be clipped into harmful sound bites, that means there were harmful sound bites in it. Long run time is not a moral alibi, dude. Let's see. So the remedy is not mentioning these groups. It provides food, fuel, content. We must not feed the beast. Okay, well, this one is the clearest control move of isolate, starve, don't respond, don't feed the beast equals don't let anyone fact check us. That's classic culty group moderation. Label the critics as an entity, the beast, so followers feel righteous ignoring evidence. Great job. Way to actually warp the hearts and minds of the people who actually trust and believe in you. Oh, and completely normal for a well-meaning and honest person, right? But you know what? A healthy, transparency-based community would happily welcome receipts. But that's not what this is. So basically, this whole thing is damage control. It's like the abuser who cried victim. You saying the problem is weaponized misreading is a complete gaslight. In reality, the problem is weaponized ambiguity. Saying cruel, humiliating, minimizing things, and then scolding the audience for hearing them. And this whole time, where is the advocacy for Rick Allen? Where is the advocacy for Abby and Libby? Where is the advocacy of countless people who've had their lives turned inside out by a corrupt system? All right, blackout time. So, yeah, this blackout is a means of control. It functions as, an obedience test disguised as solidarity. And it replaces critical thinking with emotional compliance. It's also victimhood performance, doubling as narrative control, emotional coercion, and it censors principles that true crime work depends on. A blackout command is cowardly because it runs from dialogue. It's a cultic control tactic because it demands unquestioned obedience and it isolates members from outside information. It's destructive because it undermines the fundamental act that makes communities like ours meaningful. Asking questions in the pursuit of truth. Cranks do a blackout. And Shiboogies, alright fellow cranks, we do a blackout. They don't deserve our anything, really. And you know what, Shiboogies? This is the one time I actually agree with you. No one deserved your harassment and abuse. And, then this person's like, how are you feeling? And she's like, Shiboogies goes, like an energyless zombie. Well, there's probably a reason for that. Bottom line, guys, keep receipts, protect the record. Documentation is power. It turns gaslighting into evidence and keeps truth from being rewritten. And that's really important. If harassment crosses the line, report it, to the ic3.gov, local law enforcement and platform safety teams. And to everyone who's shown me patience, kindness, and belief, thank you. Your support has kept me alive through one of the hardest years of my life. So let's keep standing for truth and accountability. And let's keep going. Please like, subscribe, and share. And I will talk to you guys later.